Hey everyone, thank you for coming to my channel. I hope you are all staying safe and healthy and you are hunkering down and social distancing as much as possible if you're in an area affected by COVID-19. My name is Taylor and I'm a US American living and working in Germany. This YouTube channel was originally meant to be for travel vlogging, but you probably know and you probably are also impacted by COVID-19 and know that traveling just really isn't a possibility right now. So I've decided to take this time to make some videos about what it's like to live in Germany, especially from an American perspective. Obviously, the most important thing on everyone's minds here in Germany right now is the COVID-19 pandemic, or SARS-CoV-2. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a resident living in Germany right now. I am not a doctor, I am not an epidemiologist, I'm not a virologist, I am not a public health official. So if you're looking for official medical advice, this is not the right place to get it. But I do want to talk about what it's like to live in this quarantine. We've been socially distancing for the past, I would say like 2.5, 3 weeks, working from home, and just what the overall political response has been and what the public response has been. But first, I think it's really important to mention today is March 25th. Things are changing so fast right now that it's really important to keep track of when you're getting your information because the next day could be really different. Right now, Germany has about 32,000 cases, I think, when I woke up this morning. Also 157 deaths when I woke up, and it's one of the most heavily impacted countries in the world right now. It's behind China, Italy, the US, and Spain in terms of number of cases. However, unlike other countries that are currently at the top of the list in terms of amount of cases, Germany has relatively few deaths and has taken less stringent actions in terms of restriction of movement and things like that than other countries have. I also just want to give you a bit of a timeline of how things have played out in Germany and the different turning points that have impacted political and public responses. Germany had its first case of COVID-19 on January 2nd in the region of Bavaria or Bayern, and that was really a starting point, but it was still in this containment phase where they were able to track people that the first cases were in contact with. And then I think I really noticed a big shift after the carnival season started. This is like, I don't know if it's like Mardi Gras, I guess you could say in the US. We don't really celebrate it where I'm from. It's a religious holiday, but people go out into the streets, they dress up in costumes, they drink a lot of alcohol, and they party for like 5 days straight, I'm pretty sure. It's not in every region in Germany, it's just in some regions. And there was an outbreak of COVID-19, specifically in Heinsberg, where they were celebrating Carnival. And because it was just a big event and there were a lot of people, it started to spread quite rapidly there. So I think that would be one of the major turning points in terms of cases spiking within Germany. So that happened at the end of February, and also happening at the end of February and the beginning of March were spiking of cases in Italy. And you might think, oh, Italy is like quite a distance away from Germany, it doesn't matter. But because of the Schengen zone, which means free movement of people and goods within certain European Union member states, it meant that people could freely enter Germany that might have also been infected. So this is really a big deal for Germany because in the winter, a lot of Germans will go to Italy and Austria for ski trips. And this is actually how one of my relatives got infected. They were in a ski area, came back and started showing symptoms. So a lot of people started coming back from their vacations, and because the time between infection and symptoms is a few days, typically on average, they don't start showing symptoms for a few days later after they've already arrived home in most cases. As things started to progress, I was just like keeping updated, usually by the news, reading a few times a day how things were progressing. And I think one of the major things that happened then was the decision by the German government to close down borders. I think Germany has taken a more measured approach to it. So by the time that Germany closed down its borders with some of the bordering EU states, so I think it was France and Austria and Denmark, probably a few, Poland I think as well. Poland had already closed its borders though, that it wasn't as much of a surprise as the US travel restrictions, for example. And then finally, I think another turning point was when regional governments started to enforce Ausgangssperre, and this just pretty much means like quarantine, like you can't leave your homes or under certain conditions, and pretty much just what we've seen in countries like Italy, but I still don't think to the same degree of severity that we've seen in other countries. So those are the main turning points that have happened in the past, I would say like 2 months. I can't believe how fast everything's gone. But one of the most important things that has happened has been the political response to this crisis. So there are 3 main political actors, I would say, that everyone in the public kind of pays attention to. That's the federal government, so the government of Germany. I think the 2 main people that have been giving like press briefings and things like that have been Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, and Spahn, no idea what his first name is, and he's the health minister. So they've been coming on our TVs pretty frequently and been giving updates. A second actor would be the Robert Koch Institute. That's pretty much Germany's version of America's CDC. So they also give press briefings 3 times a week, I think Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I just watch some of them over YouTube, and they talk about the current status in Germany, and they answer questions from the press. Then the third actor is regional and local governments. So Germany is a federal state, so that means that the regions, just like in the US, like the states, have also quite a bit of power, and Germany has, from what I understand, kind of given that power to local and regional governments to decide when to close schools and kindergartens, when to cancel events and things like that. So the regions here still have quite a bit of power in decision making. Germany has a national pandemic plan that they've put in place, and you read a little bit about it, and pretty much they have the same 3 phases as pretty much all countries, and that is first the containment phase, then the protection phase, and then the mitigation phase. And that leads me to like my third point about the response of the government, and it's gotten progressively more strict and more severe, but in measured roles. It's not like after one day they decide to shut everything down and you don't see it coming. So first, for example, the schools were shut down, and then bigger events were canceled, and then they were saying that you should be working from home. You shouldn't really be going into work anymore if you don't have to, if you're not a part of like those essential businesses. Restaurants were then closed, and bars and clubs. And I mean, this isn't an exact chronological order, but you can see that it got more severe over time as the situation progressed. And then Angela Merkel just gave a speech a few days ago as well, and now has limited gatherings to 2 people, not more, or unless they're people that are in your family or people that you live with. So it's just increasingly gotten more strict in terms of the political response. So from what I understand, the public response in Germany has been very different than the public response in other countries. So I'm speaking primarily about the response in the United States and the response in the United Kingdom, both of which, well, I used to live in the United States until I was 18 years old. I still have family and friends there. And then I also lived a year and a half in Scotland where I got my master's, so I also have friends there. So we've been keeping in contact and talking about the different kinds of responses that people have and levels of fear and things like that, and how it compares to the situation in Germany. I personally live in a region of Germany called Lower Saxony or Niedersachsen, where there haven't been that many cases and compared to other regions of Germany. So I can't really speak 100% for what's going on primarily in the south. This isn't like there are more cases in the southern part of Germany. But in Niedersachsen, I think things have been actually quite calm. So at the very beginning, when the cases started to spike, I was still at work then, and I remember talking to colleagues about what will come in the future. Do you think we're going to be sent into home office? Do you think that maybe we're going to, I'd never really worried that much about losing my job because I'm in an industry where it hasn't been greatly impacted by COVID-19, at least not yet. But I know that some other people were worried about that. So there was quite a bit of uncertainty, I would say, at the very beginning. I think there was also a bit of fear that was taken away from this uncertainty, especially because things were changing so quickly and different governments were taking different measures, and we weren't sure how the German government would react. But after I got sent into home office, I think that things calmed down a little bit, primarily because, so I would get my information probably from 3 main sources: from friends, from the news, obviously is my primary source, and then from social media. And I don't know why, I don't know if it's just my group of friends here in Germany, but they also span different like regions, my friends, and I haven't seen that much on social media, whereas my American counterparts, people that I went to school with, and other people just in different social groups in America have been posting a lot. I feel like through all of this posting on social media, it almost creates more fear and more panic. I mean, people are posting, for example, I've seen a few pictures of empty shelves at grocery stores, and people posting about how they're like out on their one walk or whatever during the day, but I haven't seen kind of like this mass hysteria that I've seen from some of my American counterparts. So maybe that's also helped in keeping other people in Germany and in my community and me personally just a bit more calm. That's not to say that nothing has spread on social media. For example, even I received from someone a WhatsApp voice message talking about how this conspiracy about ibuprofen. I mean, it's obviously with conspiracy theories, it's like starts with some truth and then it escalates and it's not based in fact. And that was something that was spreading quite quickly throughout Germany. So I have a few like ideas of why things are just playing out differently in Germany. Not to say that things are perfect here. I mean, there are also, you read newspaper articles and you see that it's possible that we'll have difficulties with medical supplies and things like that. But overall, I think that the general mood here is like quite positive and optimistic and looking towards the future. And I was just thinking, why is this so different in other countries? And I want to talk about 3 things. And I think it all kind of comes back and plays into like trust. And I think that's threefold. So trust in the government, trust in your healthcare system, and trust in your community. So I want to talk about trust with the government. In Germany, Angela Merkel is the chancellor, so the head of state, and also kind of the figurehead that everyone looks to when something's going wrong, just like Boris Johnson is in the UK and President Trump is in the United States. And Angela Merkel has been in office as the chancellor since 2005, which is a really long time. And she's led Germany through 2 other crises, probably more, but the financial crisis, obviously, and the refugee crisis. And not everyone agrees with the way that she's handled things. Obviously, you can never have 100% of everyone's approval, but I do believe that the majority of people in Germany have like some sort of trust in her. She's someone that's very stable. She's someone that is very calculated, and when she makes decisions, she makes them thoroughly and listens to her advisors. And I feel like there's just like quite a bit of trust in the German government, not just in Angela Merkel, but also with the Robert Koch Institute that I mentioned before. And you have this feeling that there's transparency about things that are going on. Also, in terms of unemployment, I've seen from quite a few people that I went to school with in America that there's quite a few issues with fear of what happens when you lose your job, or a few people have already lost their jobs that work in retail or in the restaurant industry and things like that. And what do you do? And in Germany, I think that the government has a very stable welfare system and that they have taken measures to protect people as best as possible. I know it's not perfect, and I'm lucky that I'm not in a position that I have to worry about this, but I do know people, for example, that work at companies that are taking a financial hit, and the companies are putting them into something called Kurzarbeit. And I don't know if you really have an American equivalent to this, but it's just like short work is kind of what it translates to. And they're taken pretty much completely off work. This might be different in other cases, but this is just the people that I know. They're taken off of work and they're given 60% of their salary, their last salary, until they're needed again in their company. But they're not laid off, they're not fired, they don't have to file for unemployment or anything like this. And the government is really a proponent of this kind of thing because they don't want people to be fully laid off. And the hope is that the economy will rebound and that they'll be able to go back to working full-time afterwards. So the second thing I wanted to talk about is trust in the healthcare system. The healthcare system, universal healthcare in Germany, is very, very robust. It's one of the best healthcare systems in the world. Everyone has access to necessary medical care, free medical care, if they need it, but we also have a very high insured rate. So when I moved to Germany, it was mandatory for me to get health insurance in order to apply for my visa. And it's a multi-payer health system, so there are different health insurance providers. And I pay directly out of my salary, so I don't even touch the money. They take it automatically away from me. I think it's like 15% of my salary, and then my employer matches that, and then I get a card. And I'm going to explain this all in a different video about the healthcare system in Germany because it's really complex, but it works so well. It's the most amazing thing. I have the feeling, especially coming from the US. I have a card, and I can use that card to go to the doctors. They swipe it, and I don't have to pay any kind of copays. Or there's no hidden costs. Like, Germans didn't even have to worry about whether or not they would be tested for free and treated for free. This wasn't even a question. Angela Merkel didn't have to go and give a press briefing about how she ensures that everyone will be treated, because it's a given here. It's completely understood that you will be treated for free, and your health insurance will provide everything that they should to you. It's not a question of how much money you have in your bank account. We're all equals, and we all deserve healthcare. So finally, I think the most important thing is also just trusting your community, trusting your neighbors that they're going to do the right things so that they can limit their spread in case that they have it. I think that it's about trusting that people won't overload the parks and that people are keeping their distance from their loved ones. And I think that if you have trust in your community that everyone's doing the best, not just for themselves, but for everyone else, that it really helps reduce panic and increases optimism. So I hope that you guys are thinking about that as well. Generally, in my city, I think that people have been taking things quite seriously. So I look at my window and I don't see a ton of people outside. If there are people that are going for walks or bike rides or what have you, they're always keeping a good distance between themselves. We did go to a park the other day just to get a bit of exercise and some fresh air, and there were quite a few people there, so we decided to not go back and just take walks around our area that's a bit more residential. But it's nothing in comparison to what I've seen on the news from Florida, that people are still taking their spring break trips, which I just can't imagine. Next, I want to talk about panic buying. So this is something that I've seen a lot from my friends and family posting pictures in US stores and in the UK. And in my area, you do go to the grocery store and you do see that the toilet papers, for example, the shelves are empty by the end of the day, and that a lot of people have been buying noodles for whatever reason. I don't know when they're going to eat that in the future, when all of this is over. But for example, if you go to a grocery store in the morning, you'll get toilet paper, and you go to the produce section, it's completely full. Every single meal that we've wanted to make, we go to the grocery store and we find all of the ingredients we need to make it. So there has been a little bit of panic buying, but not to the degree that I've seen at other stores. Everyone also at the grocery store that is nearest to me is really kind and respectful. So you have your line, and now everyone is standing with a distance of 1.5 meters and beautifully cued in the line. And I think it's just so great to see the community coming together and doing what they can to protect those that can't protect themselves. So I think that's really great. Also, something that I thought was really interesting is that I know that people in other countries are worrying about the number of face masks, that a lot of private individuals have been going and getting face masks, but in the last 2.5 weeks or something like that, I've very, very rarely ever seen a private individual, especially someone that's not showing any symptoms, outside with a face mask. So I don't know if this is just something in my region or in all of Germany, but it's also not recommended that if you don't have symptoms that you wear a face mask. So I think that's probably a good thing that we're not taking them away from people that really need them. So I think those are the main points that I wanted to talk about today, just about the perspective from a resident, a perspective from just a normal person living in Germany, and how everyone is reacting. From my perspective, obviously, that this is going to be different from person to person. It's going to be different from region to region, but these are the things that I'm seeing. I hope that everyone stays healthy and stays positive and stays home, most importantly, during these uncertain times. I'm going to be posting some other videos, so if you like the content that I provide, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and I hope that you guys all have a really great rest of your week. Bye.